you have these highways that cut off the city from the river, both on the north and the south. And for us is how to reestablish that connection, not just to reconnect the ecology, actually bring back the wetlands in the river. We generally look at timber because of its low embodied carbon, right? As the tree grows during its lifetime, it's absorbing carbon dioxide. And I think actually Korea is really good at that. I think especially in the traditional architecture, you see the beautiful sort of tamjang, like the walls that surround the palace and these things. There's a very beautiful tradition of like tiling, and I think a really beautiful mix of materials.
Hi, this is Wonjae Lee from Architecture Recipe. I'm very honored to have winner of Seoul Architecture Biennale. We are here with Ryan Anderson and Jie Won. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
감사합니다.
So today we're going to talk about who they are and how Ryan's and Yewon is working and practicing in their own area. And I'd like to start with Architecture Biennale event, and you are the honorably winner of whole event. And I just want to ask about how you're feeling and what's your thought into it.
I think kind of goes almost without saying that it's a huge honor to win the award. And I think especially for us, because Seoul is a place that we care so deeply about, and that we've spent some time living here and we feel very close to the city. So that made it even more of an honor to win the award.
Seoul is my hometown, so especially is humbling to receive such an award, because there's a lot of passionate architects and definitely, way more skilled than we are. So yeah, we feel very honored and humbled and thankful.
Yeah, and I think it was also, we kind of took it as motivation to kind of keep pursuing projects in Seoul, in Korea in general.
Right.
We took it as a little bit of validation of kind of like the direction and the sort of hopes that we have for the city. And we hope that we can kind of contribute our way of thinking into the future urban environment of Seoul.
Right. For those who are not familiar with Seoul Architecture Biennale, I guess, can you contextualize what's about it, and in that event, what's your title of your project, and how did you come up with those ideas?
Yeah, the Biennale, Seoul Biennale, this was the fourth time, and the director was Director Cho Byung-soo, 건축가님, 교수님, and he assembled like an Avengers team to do thematic exhibition, 100-year master plan, guest cities and global studios, and we were part of the 100-year master plan team, and this theme was about land urbanism and land architecture. So 땅의 도시, 땅의 건축. So it really resonated with us, the theme itself, because we are passionate about architecture, but not just about the form, like formal architecture. We're interested in more materials and like how it connects to the land, the spirituality of it, and then all that. It was great because it wasn't just inside like a museum. This time it actually ventured out to the city. So Songyandong area, which is right next to Gyeongbokgung Palace. That entire area was actually like staged to welcome the citizens and share about the architecture itself, and also giving the citizens the feeling of connection to the land.
Yeah, I think what was unique about this Biennale in particular is that, the typical sort of Biennale stage in world cities is to say, our city becomes like a world stage in a way that people come celebrate things from their own culture, their own home, and it just becomes sort of an international exhibition, which is often a great thing. But I think what was so special about the way this Biennale was curated is that from the beginning it was about Seoul. So from the beginning, Director Cho Byung-soo said, why don't we make this about the landscape of Seoul? He talked about how the city was originally planned as an ecological city in relation to the mountains to the north and the river to the south. I think it was, a very bold way to say, like, foreign architects also come in and we're all going to talk about Seoul as a uniting topic to kind of bring together one theme. And I think that, also brought out interest in the general public because, of course, it matters to them to see visions for their home.
Let's talk about your project.
100 Years on Seoul and Thermodynamic Balance.
Right. When I saw that whole renderings, whole project was very, very eco-friendly city that you bring it up to whole the Han River area, and you have a lot of like wood structures and timber structures, and that might be throw out some thought about the future like habitation or the urban city. And can you talk about a little bit of your project in that context?
Yeah, I think the beginning, the specific part of the exhibition that we took part in was the 100-year master plan, and it kind of sees rethinking Seoul as an ecological city 100 years into the future, and then specifically, I think there's a focus along the Han River. So we particularly had a site on the Han River in Incheon-dong, and I think it was a special opportunity to, for the future of Seoul, think about reconnecting the sort of ecological relationships, between the city and the natural landscape. And I think the other thing that is interesting to us is, in the title of the project, getting thermodynamic balance for Seoul, is that the contemporary city, like today's city, is out of thermodynamic balance. Right. So we're putting tons of fossil fuel energy into buildings to heat and cool, and in contrast to the landscape, whereas we think there's more intelligent ways to actually utilize the landscape as a performative element in the city that helps to cool in the summer naturally, helps to, can even protect things to stay warmer in the winter. And not just landscape, but materials that store energy, materials that reflect energy. And we think that through these sort of reconnections with nature and materials, you can actually restore that balance to the city, 100 years on.
Right.
There's a lot of ways to achieve that, but really is like when you look at the master plan, looking at the massing and understanding the windrows and, where is the daylight coming from? What is it like throughout the 4 seasons? Because Korea has 4 distinct seasons, and really learning about the nature and how it already behaves sort of gave us the motivation. But also we have like programs that can really validate our data and then help it form better. And I think that was how the project came together with idea and concept, but also utilizing the physics and the programs that are available to us.
Right. So while we have a specific site, I think Yeon's right. It's about creating a sort of model for the future. And I think a big part of that model that I think was very important in the Biennale itself was, you have these highways that cut off the city from the river, both on the north and the south. And for us is how to reestablish that connection, not just to reconnect the ecology, actually bring back the wetlands in the river and reconnect the ecology to the mountains that kind of are sprinkled throughout Seoul, but also the question of how to really give back the riverfront to the people in the city. Because right now I think the Han riverfront is actually a really great public space, I think worldwide, but how can we create more connections? I think there's so many places where you have to go through a small tunnel, right, to get to the riverfront in the city. And how much better would it be if it was a sort of natural flowing experience? And then I think beyond that, to also kind of restore the river breezes that kind of cool the city that have been kind of blocked off by that.
So I think in my point of view, it kind of ring my bell of one of the elements that Core Vision is mentioning about leisure and communities and plays and those the elements, and maybe we need to add one more thing through your project, maybe environmental aspect of it. So when I saw that project, I kind of reminds me of that. This environmental aspect or attitude could be the future vision for the urban city or humanity, right? I guess. Speaking to that, would you tell us about how you come up with those uniqueness of project responding to your background a bit, or if you tell us about your background a little bit and how you practicing and where you're from and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's right that the project, this particular project kind of grew out of who we've become as architects as formed by a series of experiences. And I think one of the really formative experiences for us there, of course, was working together for 8 years for Danish Arkitekten, which I think in my view, it's a very sort of environmental sensibility, but it's holistic. It's not just about, reducing numbers of carbon or some form of energy, but there's a human aspect to it as well. So it's a really sort of holistic vision of what sustainability is. It's not just about making a building that kind of performs well. It's really about, the building also has to be a place that people want to use and live in for a very long time in order to be sustainable.
Right.
Yeah. Climate, culture and materials, which sometimes we think about in architecture as being sort of different topics, but really to a large extent, climate affects culture. It affects the type of spaces that we spend our time in. It affects how much time we spend inside versus outside. The relationship between a culture and its materials also is a very interesting thing to study in relation to building. I think that forms a sort of like general undercurrent in a lot of our work. Look at these relationships and kind of weave them together into some new type of space that, maybe highlights kind of invisible aspects of architecture rather than the sort of purely aesthetic and form-driven aspects of architecture that I think sometimes dominate social media today.
Yeah, right. But then, on the other hand, I guess in current industry of Korea, I guess people who are in those industry, they're not familiar with those environmental attitude or thinking process. I guess literally saying architecture that built by timber structure or any wood type of material, 100%. But I know of you guys work on the project in outside of the country that 100% built with wood structures and a lot of very environmental friendly architecture, which is not familiar with to Korean architects and Korean public. Can you tell us about what kind of vision that you're looking at to create more environmental friendly or timber structure architecture to have more of those aspect of it in Korea?
We generally look at timber because of its low embodied carbon, right? As the tree grows during its lifetime, it's absorbing carbon dioxide and then emitting oxygen. And that offsets the carbon that's emitted when you produce it, when you manufacture it for construction. And I think that's a great thing. I think what makes it maybe special in Korea is that there's a very strong tradition of timber architecture in the Hanok and really all forms of Korean architecture that I think is really special. But I also think Yeon's point that I think it's dangerous to take the perspective that timber would be appropriate everywhere because sometimes another material will be more appropriate. And I think actually Korea is really good at that. I think especially in the traditional architecture, you see the beautiful sort of tamjang, like the walls that surround the palace and these things. There's a very beautiful tradition of tiling and I think a really beautiful mix of materials that I think they all offer different qualities, right? A certain type of stone is going to have a higher conductivity and a higher heat storage capacity. And these sort of different invisible qualities of materials and architecture are not only sustainable, but they provide a more diverse experience, I think, as a user in architecture. I've heard stories of in the old times in Korea, in Hanoks, right? The ondol system is heating the floor, but it starts in one place. So there's one room that is the hottest, and then you actually get a little bit different temperatures in different rooms as the air flows through. And I also think that has a sort of poetic aspect of different ways of occupying a space that are organized by something that's invisible.
So thank you for being here with us, and today we talked about the winner of Seoul Architecture Biennale, Ryan Alderson and Ji-Won, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you for watching us, and this is Wonja Lee from Architecture Recipe. Thank you. See you next time.